moon, which they didn't do in any picture until the very last mission when they perfected how to do it. And then it just goes on and on. I mean, the fact that several of these astronauts that I've met, when I walked up to them with the Bible and asked them to swear to God that they walked on the moon on camera, they refused to do it. I offered Neil Armstrong $5,000 cash to go to Hawaii on me or to give it to his favorite charity, and he refused to swear on the Bible that he walked on the moon. He started shaking like a leaf, and he knew not to take an oath on camera on the Bible that could be used against him as perjury. Now, if I walked on the moon and some, quote, crazy person came up to me and said, I don't believe you, you swear on a Bible, I'd say, of course I swear on a Bible. I'll swear on a stack of Bibles. But the fact is that these guys will not do it. And it just becomes more and more suspicious. And the problem with us being in America and the people hearing me, it's kind of like, I don't know if O.J. is guilty or not, but his own lawyer alluded or kind of suggested that he was. But if you try to tell O.J. Simpson's children that daddy killed mommy, it's very hard for them to believe that. And when you tell most Americans who take such pride in the moon landing that the moon landings are fraudulent and that the government perpetrated this great lie, it's very difficult for them to see it. Hitler is considered to be the master of lies, and he said this. He said that it's easier to get away with a large lie than it is a small one, because people tell small lies to each other throughout the day, and that's what we're used to. But no one would expect a big lie, and no one would think that anyone would be so audacious to tell a big lie, and he said that those are even easier. So here we are with this biblical principle from 2 Thessalonians and from John and 1 John that talk about lying, and that this represents, the allegedly greatest, most powerful nation on earth, the greatest event in human history, and how ironic is it, that it's this blasphemous event advocating the father of lies. Whether or not we went to the moon, really, in the scheme of things doesn't matter. But when you lie to this degree, to the point of murdering people,
let's talk about murder, shall we?
Sure.
Explain to my audience. I know what you're talking about, but so they'll know.
Well, on January 20th, I think it was 1967, there was what was called the Apollo 1 fire. That was when the crew that would have been the first crew to walk on the moon were in the rocket, and they were doing ground tests, and they all burned up alive. The fact is that a few weeks before that, the man who was going to be the first man to walk on the moon was complaining up the chain of command that the schedule slippages were going to prevent them from not only reaching the moon in 2 years, but reaching the moon in 10 years. The fact is the higher-ups knew that they could not and would not go to the moon, and they were deciding at that point whether or not to just admit that to the world and look a little bit, humble that they had boasted something that they couldn't do, or they were going to fake it. And at that time, it was on a need-to-know basis, and the astronauts didn't know what was coming down the pike. So when he complained up the chain of command to fix all of these mechanical problems, and he, of course, is the chief pilot, and they weren't doing anything, he could not understand. And in his rage one morning, he picked a lemon off of a lemon tree in his yard. It was the size of a grapefruit. And he clipped a coat hanger at the bottom, stuck it in, turned the hook around, and hung the lemon on the top of the rocket where you enter, right? And calling, in fact, the machine a lemon. And without permission, he held an impromptu press conference where he insisted immediately to take a picture of the lemon on top of the rocket. And you can imagine the horror of the generals when they were eating their TV dinners at home that night and seeing this on national TV, that the one guy who's to be the first man to walk on the moon is calling the machine to get him there a lemon. Well, if he had had an accident or something, probably would have stood out. So they suckered him and two other guys into this capsule, pressurized it with 100% oxygen, 4 atmospheres, and from what we understand from the dead man's relatives themselves, they believe that this fire was set deliberately. So with that hanging over the heads of the astronauts, they were definitely played ball. In fact, there were 4 other astronauts on backup crews, all of which who had fatal accidents within a 24-month period. So you got to imagine if you're working with, say, your radio station, Peter, has, like 24 employees, and 4 of them have fatal accidents within a 2-year period, you better believe that the homicide police are going to be staking out the place. And yet, no one tracks all this stuff and realizes that this is what, under the thumb of this threat of their own lives and lives of their family or who knows what, is what pressured these men into cooperating. Now, if there was just one man who faked going to the moon who was still alive, maybe that would be easier for him to tell the truth and to come forward. But the fact that, 15 or so of these guys are still alive, and any individual confession of the truth ruins all of their lives, much less potentially ruining the reputation of America, you can see even though a guy believes in God, he is having a hard time coming forward and doing what is right. So if there are any listeners out there who believe this, pray for them. Because not only, does the truth need to come out to humble mankind and to put America in its place with godlessness, these guys are in danger. I've got the hem of the garment, and I know that they didn't go with my, little piece of evidence. But they know everything.
Let me interrupt here. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Scriptures for America Worldwide Broadcasting Network. This is Pastor Peters coming to you live this 3rd of June, 2008. Our guest is Bart Sibrel. He's been a guest on our program before, I think a couple of years ago. We're talking about the moon landing. He has a website, and you want to know what he's talking about, you can go to that website and view the film, Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. That website again is what, Bart?
Moonmovie.com.
Moonmovie.com. And I want to remind you that these broadcasts come to you because some of you out there support us with your prayers, tithes, and offerings. Remember that. And we are going to continue on with the interview. Want you, though, to plan to call in. We'll open up the phone lines here in a little bit. I'll give you the phone number out now, 307-745-5913. I wanted to get that out there, and you're a very fluent talker, do very well, but I apologize for interrupting you, but we need to put that out. So,
no problem.
And I saw your film. Also, there's another one you've got. What's the title of that video with the one that I remember so well? Which astronaut took a swing at you and hit you?
That film is called Astronauts Gone Wild. After a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, I came up with the thought, what would happen if I asked astronauts to swear on the Bible, whether they walked on the moon or not? So we tracked them down because a lot of them don't give interviews where they were at public gatherings, and got a film crew and myself there and put a Bible in front of them and asked them to swear on the Bible. And at one particular incident, and I think in 2002, I confronted Buzz Aldrin with it and asked him to swear on the Bible. He refused to do it. And I want to admit I think I may have crossed the line and rebuked an older man harshly, which the Bible tells me not to do.
Right.
I called him a liar, a coward, and a thief, and he took offense and punched me. It made some headlines there. I was grateful for the free publicity. I think I'm doing my best, or at least, at that time I thought I was, and saying that and doing what I did. Maybe in retrospect, that wasn't the right thing to do, and I want to take responsibility for provoking him to punch me. I think, that's probably not the best way of going about it. But that happened. I didn't wake up that morning and say, hey, I can't wait to call him a liar, and he didn't wake up that morning and say, hey, I can't wait to punch Bart. It's one of those things that happened, and I hope he forgives me. I certainly forgive him for anything that he did. We're doing our best, The fact is he did not walk on the moon. I'm bringing out the skeleton from his closet, maybe not always in the best way. And he's under a lot of pressure, to keep this thing a secret. No telling what oath they made him take or sign or whatever.
Family members he's trying to protect, isn't it?
That's correct. At the same time, some of these astronauts have, benefited financially off of this lie. And
it works both ways, carrot and stick, huh?
Yeah. So, they have to weigh it out for themselves, which is more important, an oath to the country or an oath to their creator. And, a lie is a lie. The fact is that the murderers have a reason why they kill. Thieves have a reason why they steal.